Hello and welcome back to the channel. In this video, we will have the complete understanding about the very important Maven concept, which is the Maven Build Lifecycle. So this is a fundamental concept on which Maven works. If you watch this video till the end, then you will have the complete clarity about the build lifecycle concept. So first of all, build lifecycle and lifecycle both are the same things. So do not get confused by these terms. Sometimes some people call this Maven Build Lifecycle and sometimes they call this Maven Lifecycle. Now let's understand what is the use case of a build lifecycle in Maven. So it is a concept which Maven uses while we build a project using Maven, or when we want to distribute the project. In those cases, Maven uses this build lifecycle concept. And there are some other cases, like let's suppose we want to package the project or we want to deploy that project on some server, then also the build lifecycle comes into picture. Now let's see what exactly is a build lifecycle. So a build lifecycle is a group of some certain steps which are executed sequentially while building a project. So let me repeat. So this is a group of some certain steps which gets executed sequentially when we build any Maven project. And these steps are predefined, so we cannot insert any new step between these existing steps in any of the life cycle. And in the Maven terminology, we call these steps as phases. So now we can say in simpler words that the life cycle is a group of sequential phases. So now Maven has three built-in lifecycle, which are these: default, clean and site. So these three lifecycles are already defined by Maven and these are already exist in Maven. And the purpose of these lifecycles are different. We will see that in a while. So as we just understood that each lifecycle is a group of certain steps or phases. So here the default lifecycle will have some phases, and similarly the clean lifecycle will also have some other phases, but the phases of clean lifecycle will be totally different than the phases of the default lifecycle. And same is the case for the site lifecycle. So the site lifecycle will also have its own unique phases which will be totally different than the default and clean lifecycle. So let's now discuss these lifecycles one by one. We'll start with the default lifecycle, which is the most used lifecycle in any Maven project. So first let's discuss the purpose of the default lifecycle. So the purpose of the default lifecycle is to install the project and to deploy the project. So whenever we want to install any project in a local repository, or if we want to deploy any project on some remote server, then we use this default lifecycle. So what is the meaning of installation here? So in the installation process, we first package our project into the jar file, and then we copy that jar file into the local Maven repository, and this local repository is present in our local system itself in the .m2 folder. So I am not going to discuss about the local repository much in this video. Just understand that it is present in our local system, and for more details about this, I will create another separate video on the Maven repository. So till now we have understood the purpose of the default lifecycle. Now let's discuss the phases of this default build lifecycle. So in the default lifecycle, there are 8 major phases, which are these: validate, compile, test, package, integration test, verify, install, deploy. So here each phase has its own responsibility and we will go through each of those in a while. So these 8 are the major ones. Although in default lifecycle there are 23 phases in total, and you can see those in this particular slide. So these are the 23 phases which are present in the default lifecycle. Now there is one more crucial thing here which I want to bring up before going into detail of these phases, is the plugins and goals. These are very crucial when we talk about the Maven build lifecycle. So a plugin is nothing but a jar file, and the goals are some piece of code which is present inside these jar files. So you can understand these goals as Java methods which are present in these plugin jars. So each plugin can have one or more goals, and these goals are some piece of code which does some work or executes some task. Now understand one more important thing here, that each build life cycle phase can be associated to 0 or more goals. So here two things we need to understand, that each plugin can have one or more goals and each phase can be associated to 0 or more goals. And these goals are defined in the plugins, which is just a jar file. And at last, all these phases are part of a build lifecycle. So whenever we say this particular phase is getting executed, that actually means the associated goal is getting executed. Because the phase does not have any Java code, the actual code lies within the goal itself. So we can say that phases are just the logical steps which are easy to remember for us compared to the plugin names and the associated goals. So because these plugin names and the associated goals are hard to remember for us, that's why we use phases, and the entire complexity of actual work done gets hidden behind the phase itself. Let's now discuss each phase one by one in detail. So first one is validate. In this phase, Maven validates the basic things about the project, like if all the necessary information is available in the project, and it validates if everything is in place. For example, it validates if the project structure is correct, and it also checks if the defined dependencies have been downloaded successfully and they are available in the local repository or not. In this phase, Maven also verifies whether the project has proper XML, the POM file, whether that can be parsed properly, and also this POM file should match the XML schema from Maven. So we can say in brief that in this phase, Maven performs a sanity check on the project. The next phase is the compile phase. So in this phase, Maven compiles the source code of the project and it converts all the .java files to the .class files. The next is the test phase. So in this phase, Maven will run all the unit tests which are present inside the project, and it uses the suitable testing framework for that. For example, the JUnit, TestNG, etc. Now comes the next phase, which is the package phase. So in this phase, the Maven takes the compiled code which is in the form of .class files, and then it packages these compiled code into the distributable format like jar or a var. The next phase is integration test. So in this phase, the Maven runs the integration tests which are present in our project. Then the verify phase. So Maven checks the quality of the package using tools like find bugs or the check style, etc. Whatever we have configured in the project itself. So Maven runs any checks on the results of the integration test to ensure that the quality criteria are met. Then next is the install phase. So in this particular phase, Maven installs the package into the local repository, which can be used later as a dependency in other local projects. Then the last is the deploy phase. So in this phase, Maven copies the final package to the remote repository to share the package with other developers and projects. Now let's see how we can run any phase. So to run any phase, we run command mvn and the phase name, which is this. So for example, let's say we want to install the package into our local repository using the install phase, then we will run this command mvn install. There is one more important thing here is that whenever we run any phase, then all the previous phases will also get executed first, which are present in that particular life cycle. After that only the specified phase will be executed. So that's why in the starting of the video I had mentioned that the phases get executed sequentially, one after another. So here the sequence matters the most. And also when I am saying that all the previous phases will be executed, which in fact means all the attached goals to those phases will be executed. And in case if there is no goal attached to a particular phase, then that phase will get skipped while running that life cycle. So these were the phases which we had seen for the default life cycle. So let me go back to that particular slide. So here, if we run ambient test, then validate and compile, these phases will be executed first, and then the test phase will be executed, because validate and compile come before the test phase in the sequence. And similarly, when we run mvn verify, then all these phases will be executed first, like the validate phase will be executed, then compile, then test, then package, then integration test, and then at last the verify phase will be executed. And just for simplicity purpose, I am showing these 8 major phases, but actually all the 23 phases which I had shown, those come into picture when we run any phase. So if I talk now considering all 23 phases, then let's say we run this pre-integration test, this particular phase, then all these phases will be executed first. Validate, initialize, generate sources, all those phases will be executed, and then at last this pre-integration test phase will be executed. And also these phases will be executed in this predefined sequence itself. Let's now see the practical around this. For that, I will open up one Maven project in the IntelliJ IDEA. Now in this project, let's run the package phase here. So for that, I will run mvn package command and hit enter. Here in the output logs, you would see the resources 3.3.1 resources. So this resources is the plugin prefix, and this is the plugin version, and this is the goal which is defined in this particular plugin, and this particular phase is the process resources phase, which comes before the package phase. Then you would see this compile goal here, which is a compile phase. So here this compiler is again the plugin prefix, and this is the version, and this is the goal. Now you might ask, what is the plugin prefix? So I will come to that in a while. So you had seen that first the process resources phase is executed, then the compile phase is executed, then the process test resources, the test compile, like that all the phases are executed, and at last if I go down, this is the package phase which is executed. So again this is a plugin prefix, this is the plugin version, and this is the goal. Now you may also ask, in this slide we had seen the validate phase in the list of the phases at the very start, but it is not present here in the logs. So you might ask why it is not present. So it is not present here because by default there is not any goal attached to the validate phase. So that's why that validate phase is skipped when we run the mvn package command, and it is not present in the logs. We will see in a while that how we can check which goals are executed by default by Maven with each phase in a life cycle. So we'll come to that in a while. So as I had told you previously that when we execute any phase, then at the last the goal is executed actually. So you may ask that can we run this command directly, this jar colon jar, instead of mvn package? So the answer is no actually. So I have covered this particular question in detail in the previous video. In this video, let me explain this in brief here. So both the commands are different, the mvn package and this jar colon jar. The mvn package, when we run that command, then it runs the previous phases also, like we have seen. So it has run all the previous phases which are present in that life cycle. But if we run the jar colon jar, this particular command, then it will only run the jar goal of the jar plugin. It will not run the previous phases of the life cycle. Still, if you are curious about this, then you can check out that particular video. I will attach the link of that video in the description below. Now the default life cycle is a little bit different than the other two life cycle, the clean and the site, because in the default life cycle the goal attachment with the phases are decided based on the packaging type. in our project. Like which goal will be attached to a particular phase is decided based on the packaging type of the project. So based on the packaging type, it is also decided that whether a phase will be attached to any goal or it will be skipped. So let me explain this using the Maven's official website. So here you can see that if the packaging is either EJB, jar, par, rar, var, any of this which are listed here, then these phases will be attached to these plugin goals. So for example, this process resources phase, this will be attached to this resources colon resources goal, and this compile phase will be attached to this compiler colon compile phase. So like that, these phases will be attached to these goals if the packaging type is this. But if the packaging type is EAR, then you would see that the phases which are attached to goals are less than what we had seen here. And also the goals is also different. So here the generate resources phase is attached to this different goal, and here it is different. And similarly, if the packaging type is Maven plugin, then again the binding is different. So based on the packaging type, these phases will be attached to different goals, or even some of the phases will not be attached to any goal. So that was the reason we did not have the validate phase in the logs when we execute the package command, because as we can see, we had the jar packaging and we do not have any binding here for the validate phase. So there is no goal mentioned here which is attached to the validate phase. So that's why the validate phase was skipped. So now I guess you would have understood that how Maven decides whether any goal should be attached to a phase, and if it should, then which goal should be attached. Let's now discuss the next life cycle, which is the clean life cycle. Let's see the use case of this life cycle first. So this is used for cleaning the project. So whenever we run mvn clean command, then this clean life cycle gets invoked and all the phases of clean life cycle are executed in sequence until the clean phase, obviously. So here in the command, the clean is the phase of the clean life cycle. Let's see all the phases of clean life cycle. So it contains three phases: pre-clean, clean and post-clean. Here this X means no goal is bound to the pre-clean and the post-clean phases. This clean goal is bound to this clean phase, and this goal is defined inside the Maven clean plugin. So when we execute clean phase, this deletes everything that we had compiled or generated in the previous build. And since all the build related files are kept inside the target directory, so it deletes that directory and the everything inside that. Let's now see the practical for this. So I will open up the Maven project again. So let me clear the terminal first. So currently, as we can see, the target folder is present here. Let's now run the command mvn clean. So as you can see, this has run this clean goal of the clean plugin. Now to refresh the directory structure, I will click anywhere in this particular area. So as you can see, the target folder is removed. Now the third life cycle is the site life cycle, and this is used to create a Maven based website for the project, and this is probably the least used in the enterprise, but it is a nice feature of Maven. Let's now discuss about the phases of this site life cycle. So there are four phases in this life cycle: pre-site, site, post-site and site deploy. And there is no goal attached to the pre-site and post-site phases, and this site goal of this Maven site plugin is attached to this site phase, and similarly here the deploy goal of this Maven site plugin is attached to this site deploy phase. Let's now see the practical for this. So I will again open up the IntelliJ IDEA. Let me clear the terminal first. Now if I run the mvn site command, So as you can see, it is running the site goal of this site plugin, and for you it might take couple of minutes if you are running this first time. So after the build is success, I will click anywhere in this particular area so that the project structure will be refreshed, and now we see the target folder, and inside that we'll see this site folder, and I will open up this index.html. So I will open up in the browser. So as you can see, this is the documentation website which we have got because of the mvn site command. So here we can see the about section. So let me show you in our project as well. So here we have described this simple Spring Boot project, which we can see here. Let's now see the dependencies. So here you can see all the dependencies which we have mentioned in our project pom file. So this is the dependency with the compile dependency scope, and this is the dependency with the test scope. Similarly, for the provided scope, all the dependencies will be listed here. Then these are the transitive dependencies with their scopes, and this is the dependency tree for all the dependencies. So all those information are present here. So let's see some more things here. So if I go to the plugin section, so here we can see the plugins which we have included in our project. Then if I go to the summary, then you would see whatever name we have given in the pom file, the description, and all those information are here. The group id, artifact id, version, this is the packaging. So all those information are listed here which we have given in this pom file. So here you can see the group id, artifact id, the same things we can see here also. So like that we can generate a documentation website for our project using the site lifecycle. Now the next thing is the plugin prefix, which I have mentioned a lot of times in this entire video. So first of all, how can we identify the plugin prefix out of a plugin name? So there can be the first case when the plugin is provided by the Apache Maven itself. Then the plugin name will be in this particular format. First it will be the Maven hyphen, then the plugin prefix will be there, and it will be ending with the hyphen plugin. So for example, these are the plugins which are provided by the Apache Maven. So here we can see the Surefire is the plugin prefix, and here the failsafe is the plugin prefix, and here dependency is the plugin prefix, and here the package is the plugin prefix. So that's how we can identify the plugin prefix out of the plugin name. Let's see the case 2, when the plugin is not provided by Apache Maven. So then in that case, in most of the time it will be like plugin prefix will be at the beginning, then the format of the plugin name will be hyphen maven hyphen plugin. So for example, so this is the plugin Spring Boot Maven plugin which is not provided by Apache Maven. So here this Spring hyphen boot will be the plugin prefix. So this plugin is provided by the Spring Boot team, not by the Apache Maven. Similarly, this particular plugin is also not provided by Maven, Apache Maven. So here this spot bugs will be the plugin prefix. Similarly here the Jacoco will be plugin prefix, and here the formatter will be plugin prefix. So that's all for this video on the Maven build lifecycle. If still you have any doubt in any of the topic, then let me know in the comments. And also on our official website, I have curated multiple quizzes here on the different topics which are very important with respect to interview perspective as well as for day-to-day work. So you can check out these and let me know if you need for some other topics also. At last, as always, like the video if you got to learn anything new, and do subscribe the channel to become a skilled engineer, and keep learning, keep supporting. See you in the another video.